So I have the pleasure of introducing my headmaster today, Mr. Gioia. So Mr. Gioia got his bachelor's in English from the University of the South, and then his master's in English from Middlebury College, and then his master's in education from West Georgia College. He's involved with a wide variety of civic and professional organizations, including the International Boys School Coalition, the Country Day School Headmasters Association. He is a founding member of the Winchester International Symposium, the Headmasters Association, and the National Association of Secondary Schools Principals, and the Downtown Rotary Club. He spent 18 years at the Darlington School in Rome, Georgia, and he has served in a variety of roles, including the English faculty, director of mission, and financial aid, and headmaster. He began as headmaster at Vanderbilt Academy in 1994. During that time, the school has enjoyed tremendous achievements in academics, athletics, the arts, and the annual giving. Gioia has also seen the overgrowth of the school's physical campus, including the transformation of the school's Harding Road campus, as well as the addition of 10 acres in Sylvan Park and 150 acres in McMinnville, Tennessee, that is home to the school's observatory. The school has also expanded beyond the borders of the United States, with exchange programs on 5 continents that send nearly 100 boys across the globe every year. On a more personal note, I've enjoyed getting to see Mr. Gioia in a variety of roles, not only as a headmaster and administrator, but he teaches one first period English 4 AP class every year, and I've had the pleasure of being a part of that class this year, and so seeing him, we got to discuss the American Dream and the Great Gatsby this morning, and then so seeing him do that and then speak at a function like this or lead the MBA community in the ways he does has been really meaningful for me, and I think any student in MBA would tell you how great of a headmaster he is and all the ways that he leads an MBA. So without any further introduction, I'd like to introduce Mr. Brad Gioia.
Good afternoon. I was going to try to hide my association with the Rotary Club downtown until he revealed it, but I would say that in many senses it is really nice to be in a much more intimate setting. That there's an impersonal feel to the largeness of that 400 number downtown. And I've spoken here before, actually the last time, with several students from abroad who were at MBA. So it's nice to be back and to see a great crowd on this beautiful day. I will try to cover these topics in my brief comments. One is I want to tell you a little bit about what I do, what a headmaster's role is. I want to tell you a little bit about Nashville as I see it in regard to MBA, and a little bit about education in general and some of the trends, and a little bit, of course, about our school and its history. I was with Randy Lowry, the president of Lipscomb, yesterday, and he was talking about, I was with a group of heads of schools and him, and we were talking about running an institution like a school, which is a very complicated community and organization in so many respects, simply because there are so many constituents. If you run a company, you worry more about the bottom line. At a school, you worry about the students' emotions and their growth. You worry about the parents' feelings about their most precious possession. You worry about the many constituents who are part of the school, and there are many of you out here today, and I appreciate your being here. You worry about your boards. You have a large number of people to know and to feel various allegiances to. And in fact, Herman and I were talking about that topic in a sense on the way down here, and I think I'll reveal those comments as I talk about my own job. Well, Randy Lowry said yesterday that he heard somewhere that in one's 7th year in university education as a president or leader, you usually enjoy your most success. The problem is that most presidents only last about 4 years, he said, and so they don't get to that pinnacle. He then said that, and most of the experts say the happiest times for any head of school are typically the time between the announcement of their appointment and their first day in office. I have been at MBA for a relatively long time. The average tenure in independent schools, and there are about 1,100 schools like MBA around the country, the average tenure is about 7 years. So 19 years is a little bit longer, but interestingly enough, boys' schools tend to have a little bit longer tenure in terms of headships and the responsibilities. Well, let me get to a little bit about MBA, and I'll come back to some of the other comments. Some of you know we have a very long history. Incidentally, MBA was founded about the same time as Fisk. I'm not positive this day MBA was founded officially in 1867, but I think Fisk is right in that same ballpark of time. So you can think about that next week. But our roots actually go back to the 1780s through some predecessor schools. And so if you look around the country and you think about independent schools, the oldest ones in the country, of course, are in the Northeast. They're in New York and Boston. In particular, Collegiate School in New York and Trinity School Collegiate in New York and Roxbury Latin in Boston. Those schools date back for more than 350 years. Collegiate is actually the oldest one. The problem is it's not continuous. Its streak was broken and the school wasn't in operation for a few years, so Roxbury likes to claim it's the oldest. But MBA in the South, in particular, is one of the oldest independent schools. And more interesting than just that history is that very few schools out of those 1,100 or so schools in the country have the continuity of a school like MBA, a boys' school, a similar mission. Many schools, around the country have morphed in some way or another through coeducation or through some change within their constituencies. So our time goes back to the 1780s. You see it on that image there with the University of Nashville, Western Military Institute, and then our founding officially came to fruition through the generosity of an iron forger who came down to the Middle Tennessee area from Pennsylvania, Montgomery Bell. A bachelor, he decided that he wanted to leave his wealth to begin a school for boys. Originally, they thought it would be the University of Nashville. But when he died in 1855, the $20,000 he left, and incidentally, that money was set specifically aside to educate boys who could not afford an education from the 5 counties around Middle Tennessee. But that amount was not quite enough to establish a school, so they invested the money rather wisely. And the will was finally probated in 1867, and MBA was formally found. And our school started downtown here in 3 separate locations. One of the most interesting figures associated with MBA, and one I should have mentioned a moment ago, was Sam Davis, who was part of the Western Military Institute, who famously quoted when he was captured in the Civil War that he died 1,000 deaths rather than betray a friend. And there's a statue of him on our campus. But John Berrien Lindsley, who was the son of the former president of Princeton, came down with his family to the Nashville area. He was the chancellor, as you see, of the University of Nashville. He helped start MBA. And so in 1867, we began our official history, and we stayed downtown until 1915, when the head of MBA, Isaac Ball at the time, and the board decided that they would move this campus into the country, its current location. And the advertisement, as you see at the top of that slide, was that MBA would be a country school for city boys. The suburban world we live in now on Harding Road is not quite the country, but as you heard in Furman's comments, we actually have some country in terms of property near the McMinnville area on a mountaintop, about 150 to 200 acres. It's some of the most pristine land in the southeast. We have an observatory there because there is less ambient light on that location than any other area in the southeast. It's a beautiful location and one I'll perhaps make a few more comments about. So we bought the property at the current site in 1915. Some of you would be interested to know, and I didn't plan to address this in my comments today, but my wife is fond of telling friends that when I came to MBA in 1994, I had brown hair. And my hair changed, we are sure, because of the 15 years I negotiated the purchase of property with the neighborhood and the city and many others on Brighton Road. And MBA owned that property in 1915. They sold it to pay the bills. And so we, had that sort of time to make up. Well, here are some shots of the campus to give you a sense of the changes of MBA. One in '92 and then one in 2006. We have invested over $100 million in new construction on the campus since '95. So the campus has been transformed in many different ways. When I came to MBA in 1994, we had 30 acres and 530 students. We now have 715 students, which is a number we've had for the last 5 years. It was an agreement we made with the neighborhood to keep the size the same. And we have now 40 acres on the site at 4001 Harding Road. We have 10 acres, as you heard, in Sylvan Park, and we have 200 acres or so on Long Mountain. In terms of our influences, here's a nice, I'll show you this aerial shot of the campus that was just taken the other day. Gives you a sense of the expanse of MBA. And I guess before I get to the financials, two of the buildings that we've just finished, my favorite one on your left now, and I think Furman would agree, he and I were just having this conversation, is the new dining hall. Both that building and the Lowry Hall classroom building are the first Gold LEED certified buildings in Tennessee. And for those of you skeptical about the financial decision to build a LEED certified building, the payback is typically 7 years. Our bills now show us that the payback would be in 3 years. We dug, some of you saw this as you drove by the campus, we dug 100 geothermal holes out in front of the campus, and that geothermal energy now heats and cools both those buildings that you're looking at. And it's been an incredible difference. Even simple comments like one of our history teachers, Mr. Herring, I'm sure Furman knows him well, he told me the other day that his allergies are completely different in the new building because of the quality of the air in that building. And I kind of took that comment to heart because I got so interested in this LEED certification and the geothermal energy that my wife and I decided to put some geothermal energy into a house that we own in Leaper's Fork. And we have seen the same differences in that house, both in terms of the quality of the air and in the economic differences in the bills we're paying for heating and cooling the house. The building that was the other building, not the dining hall, but and I probably should tell you the dining hall building looks a lot like Hogwarts in the Harry Potter films. So much so that on the first day we opened it, I thought the right thing to do was to have a breakfast with the senior class. And Furman will vouch that I dressed like Dumbledore, the headmaster, for that breakfast. The other building is also notable, the one that you're looking at, the Lowry building, which should be on, I guess, your right, because that building is named for a teacher, as some of you know, who taught at MBA for more than 50 years. Quite a feat. And what I like most about it is that most buildings, as you know, on college and high school campuses are named for donors. The donor of that building said, let's name that for a teacher. Which was a significant decision, particularly in the eyes of our own teachers on the campus, and also in the eyes of a lot of the alumni. One of the most interesting buildings that we built is the soccer field on your left and the parking garage. That building was constructed because we knew we needed to be sensitive to the neighborhood because of the parking issues. We also had a very small footprint to build it on because of the creek that runs through the creek that runs through the campus, and all the rules and regulations we had to follow about that creek, because as you know, when it floods in that area of Nashville, the front of MBA acts as a basin and actually helps the entire neighborhood because all the water dumps there. It becomes like a small lake right in front of the campus. And so we had a very small, narrow footprint to build, so much so that we had to eclipse about 20 feet of left field of our baseball stadium. And the way we solved that was we built about a 40-foot wall, which is our own version of the Green Monster at Fenway Park. Of course, we call it the Big Red Monster because we're known as the Big Red. And then the other building that's on your right on the screen is the observatory, which you probably can tell looks like a rocket ship, and very intentionally so to do so. MBA's had an incredible influence, as many of you know, on Nashville. There's a few of the many people I could have placed here. Nelson Andrews, who did so much for this city's leadership and establishing Leadership Nashville. Bronson Ingram, who made his impression in so many different ways, especially at Vanderbilt, but many more in Nashville. Dr. Tommy Frist, who established HCA, as you all know. His brother Bill Frist, who is still on our board and obviously very involved in healthcare and politics worldwide. One of my favorite alums, Mr. Bass, who's 103, still drives, so he doesn't drive any longer, but so goes to work every day. He is one remarkable individual, both I think at Harvard and Sewanee and at MBA. He is the oldest alumnus still active. Jack Massey, who took 3 companies to the New York Stock Exchange and was on our board. Jimmy Bradford, whom we were just talking about, as did his father, who went to MBA and, of course, built J.C. Bradford. MBA's budget is approximately $20 million a year, so we have a fairly significant, in our own way, economic impact on the city. Our tuition next year is $22,000, which I know sounds expensive to many of you, but to put that in context, it is actually below the median of tuitions in independent schools in the country, which is just an interesting statistic for you to know about how expensive private education is. We are fortunate at MBA in that about 80% of our operating budget comes from tuition, and a little bit over 20% comes from endowment spending and from annual giving. And so we have an incredible support by our friends, our families, our alumni at MBA. Well, the motto of MBA, Gentleman, Scholar, Athlete, is certainly one of our best values and intellectual properties at MBA. There are very few organizations, very few families, certainly very few companies that could have the entire constituency quote in such a clear, concise, and prioritized way what the school is about. And I can assure you that when some student drives too fast in the neighborhood, or there's some problem, and I get a call, they typically begin the conversation with, "Isn't your motto, gentleman, scholar, athlete?" They're not perfect, but they work at it. And it's wonderful to have that kind of mission in place as we talk about the school. Incidentally, Francis Carter, who was headmaster at MBA from 57 to 78, coined that motto for MBA, and in so many respects he is the architect of MBA for the 20th century. This coming year we will have students this next fall from 33 different zip codes and from 44 different schools. That tells you something about Nashville, and it tells you something about MBA. We look for the best students in Middle Tennessee. And as Furman was telling me just before I got up here, and I asked him if he had any advice, one of the things I like most about MBA is that working hard is admired. Excellence is admired. It's not who you are and what your family name is. The boys and the faculty respect those individuals for working hard and for showing excellence. And it's not limited to the stereotypes. When Adam Bowman, who's one of his classmates, finished at the top of the competition in the National Science Intel competition recently, you could tell that the seniors especially and the rest of the school gave him a standing ovation because of what he could do. So whether it's in theater or music or science or athletics, we'll have about 110 students in the 7th grade this coming year and about 125 in the 9th grade. There are, as I said, I think 715 students at MBA in grades 7 through 12. The academic program is classical in nature. We still require Latin. There are 9 Latin teachers at the school. There are very few schools, probably a handful, maybe 3 in the country, that would give you that same statistic. We believe in the value of the classics. We believe in the importance of that kind of traditional liberal arts approach, and it informs almost every one of our decisions about the school. On the other hand, we also realize that being relevant and having some innovative thought about who we are and what we're doing is equally important, and I'll mention that in a few moments. Our achievement is stellar. We had 21 National Merit Scholars this year. The only school that beat us in Tennessee is at White Station in Memphis, and our seniors are fond of telling me that their senior class at White Station is 870 students. We have 120. They know the ratio of merit scholars. They had one more than we did, merit scholar. The college matriculation list is equally impressive. But what I tend to like more about MBA is the balance of the school. Just as you heard in Furman's introduction, he's in the jazz band, he's a decathlete, he's on the student council. I think it's very important for us to profile and to push boys to be musicians and to be athletes and to understand the importance of having an intellectual and inner life. I think that's going to make for better men and better citizens in Nashville. And so that balance for us resonates in the arts and music. We have over 300 boys involved in music at school. In debate, I was just on the phone with a prospective debate teacher. We have 3 at the school already. And I said to him, for me, debate bookends the school. The intellectual skills that those students have make a significant difference at MBA. Theater, service, athletics, of course, those are all important. Just to kind of highlight that issue this morning, each year I take the seniors to a film at the end of the year at the Green Hills Theater. We are reading The Great Gatsby in class right now. I showed them a film preview of the new Leonardo DiCaprio movie. My entire class, as well as my advisees who are seniors, said, please, let's go to that film. How many seniors are going to tell me around the country they want to go see The Great Gatsby? That is one of the distinguishing features that I see on a daily basis at MBA. As you heard also, and this gets to the question of innovation and different programs, we began in 1997 a push to look beyond Nashville. It is an incredible city, as you well know. I love this city. I've adopted it. I've been here almost 2 decades now. It is a wonderful place to raise a family. It has the amenities of a big city and the beauty of, incredible landscape in Middle Tennessee. But it is a relatively small city, as you know. I've been in China 3 times in the last 9 months. I've been on a train from Beijing down to Shanghai. And I've looked up out the window and saw cities that I could not tell you the name of that were 3 to 5 million in size each. It is a large world. It is imperative for me to teach our students about that world. We have boys, one in our English class is from Nigeria right now, and he goes to school at Winchester in England. We have 3 boys from Germany at school, 3 from New Zealand, 5 other boys from Eton and Winchester in England just this week. And throughout the school year, you'll see students from Bogota, Singapore, China, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, and we're looking at India at the moment. So these international programs have been very valuable, I think, to the school. One of the great gifts that MBA has had in the last 15 years is Pat Wilson, who was a great friend at MBA, left a bequest of $15 million. We use that entirely to send boys to programs in every academic discipline and abroad each year. It is one of the greatest perks at MBA and really one of the secrets of making the school stronger. And so we do have this interest in innovation and balance As you see with international programs, we have a new innovation center at school. We've been pushing robotics lately. And I want to sort of finish up by telling you a little bit about my own role. The word headmaster is a term that whose etymology suggests the head teacher at the school, the headmaster. It's a British term. It has certainly evolved in many different ways so that people like me who have to deal now with endowments and endowment managers and sophisticated annual funds and fundraising and campuses that have topics like deferred maintenance you have to think about all the time. It has made people like me become very much a CEO. And in some ways, as I was telling Furman on the way down, I have rebelled against that idea because I like the idea of being very much involved in the school and teaching and knowing the students. At the same time, I'm savvy enough to know all of those issues are critical to develop a great school. And I try to do those a little bit more quietly. But I still teach, and I still certainly am very aware of who we are as a school community and what we need to do. We have about 140 people who work at the school. There are faculty members like Bill Compton, some of you know, who've been there 45 years, and some who have just been there 2 years. A great school should be like a family. You need grandparents, and you need young uncles and aunts. We have about 25% of the faculty staff who are female at MBA, and women teachers are particularly important in boys' schools. It's also significant to tell you that we have teachers from Ireland, England, Venezuela, and China, just to sort of mirror the changes in Nashville and the world. But I wanted to close by talking about boys' education because we are a boys' school. I never thought about MBA as a boys' school, honestly, before I came. I thought about it as being a really good school that could be even better. And it wasn't until I was there that I started thinking a lot about boys' education. One of our favorite quotations now at the school is one that reads, "It is easier to build a boy than to repair a man." And that principle informs also much of what we do at school. It is easier to build a boy than to repair a man. And we're fortunate in having students who work hard, who want to achieve. And here are a list of some of them that I've had fun getting to know recently. Charles Sawyers, who's head of oncology at the biggest cancer center in New York. Tom Schulman, who wrote Dead Poets Society and all the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movies. Frank Andrews, who graduated in 1903 and was a significant commander in the Supreme Forces and is also the namesake of Andrews Air Force Base in Washington. We have our own Andrews Field at MBA. R.A. Dickey, whose story is amazing and whose journey is amazing. I hope some of you looked at his book, the Cy Young Award winner last year. Madison Smart Bell, who's an amazing author. Morgan Etchikin, who's a publisher in New York for Grove Atlantic. Bill Collins, who won the Nobel Prize with Al Gore. Wilson Pereer, who's an admiral and ambassador to China. And Brant Snedeker, who won the FedEx Cup last year. By the way, if you're watching TV next Sunday when the Masters is on, Brant, we hope, will be playing well after his recent injuries, and they will be broadcasting throughout the Masters that they're doing a special interview with R.A. Dickey from the MBA campus on 60 Minutes right after the Masters. We're all hopeful at MBA that Brant will win the Masters, and then R.A. will be featured on 60 Minutes. Boys' schools are most important, I think, because of the camaraderie. And as Furman also indicated to me a few minutes ago, it is that kind of connection and close friendship that you see all their lives. And as much as the achievements mean a lot to me, most of all, I am impressed by the quality and the depth and the richness of the friendships, which extend all their lives, even to a point where I'll come to a reunion event and somebody who graduated 50 years ago will have written a poem about his classmates and how he feels about them over 50 years. I've seen this 3 times at MBA. And I think they enjoy just coming, especially when they become seniors, to campus each day, to be with their friends, to eat lunch with them, and to have a richer and a greater friendship. So I think I've taken up my time. If there's a question or two, I'm glad to answer, but if not, I'm just glad to be here today. I appreciate the invitation very much.